Why did humans turn themselves into aliens? Let's find out. So the story begins in the year 2048. It is the time when humans have depleted all habitable resources from the Earth, and all countries fight each other to get what few resources are left. At the same time, we see some cars going in NATO operating base. Many mansions were built at this place. There was also a supermarket, cinema and mall. Then we see a car stopping in which a person named Rick, his wife Dr. Abigail and their son Lucas were. Then a lady named Freya takes them inside the mansion and tells them that this mansion is your home from now on. Rick's family was very happy to see this house. The three of them stand in front of their private swimming pool. Lucas then asks Rick that where are you going on mission, at which Rick points him to space. Then we see the houses nearby which were just as grand as Rick's house. This tells us that those who came in other vehicles have been given similar houses, and by combining them, 13 families have shifted here. Originally these families were brought here for a mission, in which experiment will be done on them, and they will be sent to live on a planet called Titan, because there is nothing left to live on Earth, and war started in many countries to get the remaining resources. So the scientists discovered a planet to save the humans, and so that humans can live on this planet. That's why they started experimenting on these people. The next morning we see the head of the project, Professor Martin, who has come to see Rick. Rick and Abigail are overjoyed to see Martin. Rick thanks Martin for selecting him in this mission, at which Martin reminds him of the risks of this mission. The professor said that he was very happy to have Rick join the mission. Now there is a NATO conference, in which Professor Martin explains that in the next 10 years, half of the Earth will be destroyed, and then after 15 years, half of the world's population will die of hunger. The professor claims that their children will witness the end of the world, however, giving hope among all of them. He says that the planet of the title is Saturn's biggest moon, which is the same planet as Earth in our solar system, but it is by no means ready to live, because methane is raining on Titan in liquid form, due to which the atmosphere there is full of nitrogen, and the temperature there is also very low. The professor then explains that space science says Titan may not be a habitable planet, but the professor believes that instead of making this planet habitable, they will make changes in humans in such a way that humans will become friendly with the nature of this planet. So Rick and 13 different people were called on that team. By experimenting on them, they will be made according to Titan's atmosphere. After this experiment, their body size will increase. There will be nitrogen instead oxygen on this planet, but they will be able to breathe nitrogen. At the same time, they will also survive the frost on Titan. Well, everyone here knows about the dangers of this experiment, but all were willing to risk their lives for the future generation. Then Dr. Hernandez asks Martin if he can guarantee that no lives will be lost in this experiment, to which Martin says that he already told everyone that he's not making any guarantees. He also states that many people may be died during the experiment, to which Rick says that we all came here on our own accord, and they are doing all this for their future generation. Now everyone is given a card related to this experiment, and then they are taken to a lab where experiment helper Dr. Freya gives Rick an injection, and says that this injection tracks heart rate, blood pressure, sodium levels, due to which many changes will be brought in the body. Also, he is told that he will have 300 injections per week. In fact, with the injection, the body of these people will be able to breathe with nitrogen as well as oxygen. Abigail then comes there and invites all the families to the party. They all eat and drink together, and enjoy by dancing. This is their last party as they will no longer be allowed to drink. Abigail drinks too much at the party. Then after the party Rick grabs her and starts taking her to the room, during which Rick begins to cough profusely. Seeing this, Abigail helps him and discovers that Rick has a very high fever. She gives him some medicine and puts him to sleep. The next day everyone is held underwater until they can breathe, in which Rick and a girl named Tally sit in the pool for a long time, and the rest come out. Everyone outside is happy because their experiment was working. Now Tally begins to suffocate and after 39 minutes she floats out of the water, but Rick still lives inside. But after a while Rick's vitals begin to drop, which makes everyone worried. Rick then swims in the pool quickly, showing off his progress, and comes out. Everyone cheers for him and claps for him, because Rick had been underwater for a full 42 minutes. Now at night, Rick spends time with his family, and tells the story to his son Lucas by telling him about the Titan's conditions. Lucas was very happy to know that his father is going to live on another planet. Rick and Abigail go to the swimming pool after Lucas goes to bed, where Abigail notices that Rick's back veins are bulging. She thinks that maybe the experiment is causing changes in his body, so she doesn't say anything about it. The next morning Rick goes to his new experiment in which Rick is about to undergo surgery. On the other hand, both Abigail and Ryan become friends. Ryan is the wife of another volunteer there. Here Ryan tells Abigail that she didn't want her husband to come here, but her husband did not listen to her. When Rick goes home after surgery, that day, Abigail, being a doctor, reads the same book that was given to every volunteer. She sees that all the experimenters are safe, so she is relieved. But when she opens her eyes at night, she notices that Rick is not in bed. She goes into the kitchen and sees Rick applying ice to his body. Rick says that he felt very hot while sleeping on the bed and his whole body was on fire. Hearing this, Abigail brings a bucket full of ice, but Abigail pulls out her hands because of the cold. But Rick still doesn't pull his hands out. Rick says he doesn't feel cold. This meant that they are all slowly becoming habitable on Titan. Because Titan is a very cold planet, that's why everyone's body is designed to live there. Now in the next experiment everyone is asked to swim in the water again. And this space is filled with methane gas, which Titan would also be. They are then taken to a ground where they are fitted with methane and nitrogen gas masks, so that they can learn to breathe with both gas. After everyone is masked, they are asked to run. They have to run as long as they can breathe methane and nitrogen. All do the same exercise for several days. Many days pass like this, and then one day when they're all in the changing room, then Rick notices that he's losing a lot of hair. Then Tally also checks her hair and finds that her hair is falling out too. Everyone here was having the same problem because it was all a result of these experiments. Then one of the ladies suddenly starts vomiting and blood starts coming out of her body. Everyone tries to help her. Then Dr. Freya also comes there and tries to help her. But before Freya can do anything, that lady dies. Seeing all this, everyone gets shocked because now they are starting to see the reality of this experiment. That night, everyone again gathers at Rick's house and discusses the matter. Abigail then shows these people's veins for a few seconds and then disappears. Meanwhile, Ryan's husband suddenly becomes aggressive, and loses his control and attacks the Ryan. Seeing this, other people go to help Ryan and stop her husband. Actually her husband could not handle the experiments. The next day, Freya visits Rick to check her vitals, where she reveals that the girl who died in the changing room had kidney stones, and because of this disease, her experiment changed, which caused her death. Now Rick also starts vomiting at night with a lot of blood coming out. Abigail then takes a sample of Rick's vomit to test his blood. As she closes the door, she sees a flashing light outside, which makes her realize that they are being watched. Rick is then seen in the swimming pool where he sees his skin coming off. Later, as Rick sleeps, Abigail notices Rick's back skin peeling off. Here Abigail also takes a sample of his exfoliated skin. The next morning Abigail takes both samples to the lab, where upon test Abigail finds that there are many compounds in it which are not mentioned in the book given to them. That same day, Rick undergoes eye surgery so that he can see in the dark. After the surgery, he goes home. At night while sleeping, Rick's eyes begin to bleed, so he is taken back to the hospital. Here Abigail meets the professor and blames him for not telling everything about his experiment. Also she talks about the cameras outside their house, to which the professor says that they are planted for their security. Abigail is then sent home. As soon as she reaches home, she sees huge vans of soldiers arriving at Ryan's house. When she goes to Ryan's house, she is stopped by a soldier. Then someone throws Ryan out the window, which causes her death. In fact, Ryan's husband went completely wild because of that experiment, and killed Ryan. Now the soldiers rush up and kill Ryan's husband. After which, one night, Abigail takes Rick's key card and sneaks into the facility, where he gets the medical file of all the volunteers. She sees that the girl that dies had not any kidney stone. On the other hand, the professor and his team are in a meeting with NASA here. Professor punished for conducting post-evolutionary experimentation without proper evidence and ethical reasons. Also he is threatened to stop his work as soon as possible. The next morning, the professor goes to see Rick at his house, and tells Abigail that he still doesn't know the actual effects of this experiment. But now they can't back down. Also suggests that humans will be transformed into a new species known as Homo titans, and it would be different from Homo sapien. Now because everyone evolves differently they don't know what the Rick will look like after the full experiment. Rick then opens his blindfold and is surprised to see everything even in the dark. That is, his eyes are now evolved after the experiment. Now another surgery is done on all of them the next day, but everyone except Rick and Tally is killed. Now the future of the entire humanity depends on these two. After which Abigail is called to the facility after the surgery, where she is surprised to see Rick in a completely different creature, but Rick still remembers his memories. Both Rick and Tally were fully transformed into Homo titans. Both can hear humans talking but cannot speak to them, because now they communicate in low frequency, which normal human beings could not hear. Rick comes home that night and accidentally hits Abigail, because of which Abigail starts to fear Rick. Then Rick is in the pool, while Tally visits him. It is revealed that he has killed his husband. Then several soldiers come there to catch Tally. The soldiers shoot and kill Tally and then try to capture Rick as well, but he easily kills them all with his new power. Then Abigail comes there and gets scared seeing him in this condition. Rick quickly runs away from there. Here, Army Chief asks to kill Rick even though the professor forbids him, and goes out to find him with the soldiers. At night, Abigail finds Rick in the woods. Rick had the power to read people's minds. As soon as he holds Abigail's hand, he understands what Abigail wants to say. Originally Abigail wanted him to surrender. Both kiss each other. And then there are the professor's men who grab Rick and take him away. Rick is taken to the facility and placed in a glass cell. Rick is now prepared to be sent on Titan, but his emotional attachment to Abigail and Lucas was preventing him from moving forward. So the professor gives a compound injection to Abigail, and tells her to inject a Rick. This will erase all of Rick's memories, and he will forget his wife and child too. Abigail does the same, when she goes to inject him. Then Rick shakes his head and refuses to inject him, because he didn't want to forget his family, but Abigail injects him and comes out, after which she runs away with Lucas and Dr. Freya. Then we find out that Abigail hasn't injected Rick. Here Rick feigns unconsciousness and kills a soldier when he approaches him. All soldiers are alerted, but Rick has got many powers, with the help of which he becomes successful in escaping. Rick meets Abigail and Lucas in a lab, but then soldiers arrives there and surrounds him. The professor explains to Abigail that Rick cannot be turned back into a human, so now Rick has to be sent to Titan to keep him alive. Abigail had lost Rick, so she agrees to send him to Titan for humanity and Rick's survival. In the next scene we see them on an airplane, where Rick is in a body bag and is taken to be sent to Titan. A few months later, Professor Martin is arrested for using unethical methods. Abigail and Freya then take over the Titan project facility, and the project begins to progress properly. One night Lucas brings his mother outside to show her the clear night sky. On the other hand, we see Rick standing on the mountains of Titan. Rick has fully adjusted to the Titan's environment. Then he spreads his webbed hands and starts flying in the sky. With that, this amazing movie ends here.